What's going on, guys? So in this video, I'm going to be talking about the OG SRT power plant, the 6.1 liter Hemi. What modifications work well with this engine? Well, that's been a question that I've been getting quite a bit lately. Looks like there's a bit of a resurgence in interest in that power plant and the cars that it's in. And it kind of makes sense, I guess. I mean, we're coming up on almost 20 years since that engine and those cars were released. So yeah, I can see where the nostalgia is coming from. And if you've got one of these cars, I'm a little bit jealous, I have to admit. It is kind of my favorite of the Gen 3 power plants. So what works well for it? Well, the cool thing about this engine is it's basically an old school layout. There is no variable camshaft or variable runner intake manifold. It's just a great set of cylinder heads. Matter of fact, the intake flows about 325 CFM with the exhaust just shy of 200. It's got a great flowing cast aluminum intake manifold, and well, that's it. And if you've ever been around any engines from back in the day, from like the Fox body era, and like that, basically just fuel injection and nothing else, well, that's what you get with the 6.1. And when it was released way back in 2008, well, I gotta admit, I mean, it kind of set some people on their heels because 425 horsepower out of a naturally aspirated V8 was a big deal. And it kind of still is today. So what works well for that engine? Basically the same things that work well for any basic V8 build. In this case, a set of long tube headers and a catback will make it sound quite a bit better and will help the car pick up some power down low. That is assuming, though, that you've been working with a tuner that speaks fluent Mopar. But at this stage of the game, there's so much data on these engines because they've been out for 20 almost years. So it's not going to be hard to find folks that'll get you right where it needs to be in terms of a tune, but it will need a tune and a tuner that knows this platform to get the most out of it. So long tube headers and a good catback. And if you just want to keep it like that on the street, you're fine. The camshaft, though, in this engine is a little bit on the conservative side, but it's not too conservative that a good exhaust can't take advantage and build a little bit of power. As far as how much can you pick up, well, between the long tube headers and a good catback and a solid tune, now you can probably pick up somewhere around 15 to 20 horsepower at the rear wheels, and that isn't bad at all. And if you want to take it a step further, you can always dive deeper into the engine, but the cost starts to really well up at this point. But if you've got the funds, a camshaft will definitely wake this platform up. And a spec that I would go with, and by the way, the stock camshaft is like low 200s on the intake and exhaust duration and about 550-ish lift, give or take, with a 117-degree lobe separation angle. It's really not that bad of a camshaft. Matter of fact, it works well enough as a performance option that you might not even want to go that route. But if you did, the specs that I would look at, I wouldn't go much more than about 222 on the duration on the intake, about 230 on the exhaust. Tighten up that lobe separation angle to, say, 113, 114, and lift just wherever it falls, 550, 570. It's not going to make that big of a difference. The main thing is just to tighten up the lobe separation angle and have that intake center line somewhere around 110 or 111-ish degrees. That's going to make for a very happy Hemi. That's it. Total bump in power is going to be about 10 to 12% once you wrap it all up, which is to say 40 to 50 horsepower to the rear wheels is about what you should expect, give or take a little bit. And there's other stuff like a 180-degree thermostat and just other bobs in here, like a little bit bigger throttle body or a true through ported throttle body can help it breathe, especially if you're going to be running this thing up higher in the RPM range. So that's it, really. I mean, it's a simple platform and, well, it takes well. It's kind of a meat and potatoes kind of a platform. But if you've got one of the car platforms that this was put into, a Challenger or a Charger, a lot of those guys, if it's an automatic transmission, will benefit from transmission tuning, firm up the shifts, and get those shift points sorted out to where they're a little bit more optimized. Now, for many guys, they'll stop there, but for the harder core, there is always a rear gear option for the Challengers and Chargers. And this is where I want to caution you a little bit. The NAG1 transmission, which is the automatic that engine is going to be bolted to, Those cars come with a 306 limited slip rear diff, which is a great overall gear for that car, but the fifth gear in a Nag 1 is fairly aggressive. So when guys used to take the 373 or the 391 gear out of the manual cars and put them into Nag 1 cars, they had a tendency to be a little bit buzzy on the freeway. And if that doesn't bother you, then that's going to be a good option for you. But personally, I'd stick with the 306 because of the aggressive fifth gear in that Nag 1. It'll give you the best option, the best all-around performance, and it'll keep you from being droned out of your head going down the highway. But again, that doesn't bother some people, and if you want the benefit of added acceleration, especially on very sticky tires, you're going to want to go with that 373 or a 391 gear, and well, a little bit of highway buzzing is just kind of the price you got to pay. But aside from that, it's a pretty simple setup, and it is awesome when you get it dialed in. It's a very fun combination, and based on the nostalgia and the look and the old school simple interior, again, I gotta give you my jealousy if you've got one of those. It is still one of my all-time favorites and one of my biggest crushes. And with that, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up. Post up your comments, let me know what you think. If you've got one of those 6.1 powered cars, let me know what all you've done with it. I'd love to hear about it. And with that, that's a wrap.